Recognition, power, and influence is your birthright, and this podcast shows you how to get there. Welcome to episode number 237. Today's episode is a public service announcement. If you are using this particular quality of your personality, of your leadership as a selling point for your promotion or in interviews with hiring managers or recruiters, I need you to stop doing this yesterday. And I'll just leave it at that. You'll have to listen to the episode to figure out what it is. But once you stop doing this, other people are going to really actually see the value that you bring to the leadership table. All right, let's get started.
Welcome to Women Changing Leadership. I am your host, Stacy Mayer, and I teach you how to get promoted, get paid, and bring your whole self to the leadership table. I am on a mission to change organizations from the C-suite out because women are the new face of leadership, and we are doing it on our terms.
Hello, corporate badasses. Welcome to another episode of Women Changing Leadership. I am your host, Stacy Mayer, and super excited, as always, to be here with you again this week. Today's episode is more of a public service announcement, a reminder. But before I get into that reminder for you, this is something that every woman needs to hear. I want to celebrate the Summer of Magic and the success that we've been having as part of this celebration of 432 promotions over the summer of 2024, even while we are on vacation. It's been so impactful to celebrate so many women. I think we've almost got 100 plus women that we've celebrated already on LinkedIn. Follow me at LinkedIn at Stacy Mayer if you're not already. This is so important for everyone to know how many women are having success on a regular basis. Yes, we have so far to go in terms of leveraging leadership at the leadership table and getting more women into leadership positions. But I also want you to remember that that journey, that challenge, that fight, it happens one promotion at a time. And your next promotion really does matter in the greater scheme of things. Last week's episode, I talked about the power of just truly celebrating women versus trying to fix them. So go back and listen to that episode, and you can think about how you celebrate and support members on your team, but really also how you celebrate and support yourself. Are you always looking for what needs to be fixed? Or are you remembering, are you celebrating, are you sharing what is going right? And it's always a great reminder to every single one of us to do that. And then when we see other women celebrate, then it gives us permission to celebrate as well. So I hope the Summer of Magic has that magical ripple effect. The other thing that it's been doing is challenging my clients and women inside my network to be a part of it. Everybody wants to be highlighted on the Summer of Magic, and they want to get promoted as part of the Summer of Magic. And I just talked to a client yesterday. She said, there's still hope. I'm going to get this before the Summer of Magic ends. So you got 2 more months, 3 more months. I don't know. There's a lot of summer left for us to celebrate you specifically. And I really want to remind you that you have all of the tools that you need inside of this podcast. You can work with me directly. You can take one of my programs. You can figure out, you can read my book, Promotions Made Easy, to really give yourself guidance as to what it's going to take to get into that higher level leadership position. And I always want to remind you that even if promotions only happen one time per year at your organization, there is always a possibility that it could happen today, tomorrow, while you're on vacation, while you're on maternity leave, while you're on sabbatical. It happens all of the time in the world. And I want you to remember that that is not only possible for you, that there is a way that you can make that happen. Yay, Summer of Magic. All right, now on to the public service announcement, because this is a little bit of a soapbox. So I had to take a minute first to celebrate what you all are doing right before I tell you what I think you should stop doing yesterday. And this is such a big deal. And the reason that I know I have to talk about it is because I've had 3 women in the last week tell me this information as if it's a good thing. And I want you to know to stop doing this. So the thing that you are going to stop doing, the thing that you aren't going to do anymore, is use personal growth, your desire for personal growth, your desire to learn and grow as a selling point for why you should be promoted or hired. I'm going to say that again. Stop using your personal growth, your desire to learn, as being a reason that a company should either hire you or promote you. And this shows up in so many different ways. So I'm just going to give you the 3 examples of how this showed up for my clients. Before I get into those examples, I really want you to understand no shame. There is a reason that you use personal growth as a selling point for why you should be promoted or hired. There's no fault. There's no reason that you should know this information. I am super thankful that you follow my podcast, you follow my teachings, because now I know I can help you, but it's not your fault. All right. So that's the first thing. Okay. And the reason why it's not your fault is because of the corporate structure is set up to have everybody below the C-suite as being in that position of learning, maybe below vice president level. So if you're below the executive team, you are supposed to be in learning mode. So let's say you're a new manager, and when you became a new manager, they highlighted you as a high potential leader. They actually called you that. You can go back to some of my previous podcast episodes where I say, I hate that term, high potential leader. I want people to see you as an executive leader, even if you don't sit in that seat. I don't want people to refer to you as high potential. High potential, you know what that gets you? More high potential, like the potential for the future. I don't need you to have potential. I want people to see you and include you today. That is available to you right now, no matter what level you're at. So I want to point that out, that the system is set up for us to be in learning mode and to understand that growth is a part of our leadership and the willingness to grow and so on. So that's one reason why that's the default. The other reason that that's the default is because so many of you don't pay attention to your own personal growth on a regular basis. Like in the introduction to my book, Promotions Made Easy, I talk about how if you want to get promoted, like, somebody actually asked me this question like 5 years ago, what's the first thing that I need to do? And I said, deliberately manage your career. So if you want to be promoted, you need to care about growth. You need to deliberately manage your career. You need to be ambitious, like actually make a point to do that. And so our default is not necessarily to be ambitious, to think about growth, right? Our default is to be good at our job, to get a paycheck, to make sure that, we get approval from others. This is just sort of the standard approach to work, to getting an A+. We want to make sure that people like us and that we pass our performance review. But a lot of times we're not talking and thinking about our long-term growth. So then you join a women's group. Maybe you were in my Executive Ahead of Time program. Maybe you read my book. And I talk about how you need to deliberately manage your career in order to have success. Okay, there are things that we do for ourselves that don't have to be shared with other people. Again, I'm going to say that out loud. There are things that we can do for ourselves to motivate ourselves that don't have to actually be told to anyone else. So for instance, if growth is one of your core values and if it motivates you to deliberately manage your career, fantastic. That's great. But the hiring manager on the other end, or your boss or your boss's boss, doesn't see growth in the exact same way. They don't see growth as value. Your desire to grow is not valuable to them. So keep it to yourself. That's great. You want to learn. You're a lifelong learner. You care about growth. So I love all of that. That's a great, great quality. from an executive leadership perspective and getting them to see you as an executive leader today, not a high potential leader, not somebody who needs to be fixed or helped, you have to present yourself as not growth as your goal or your strength, but that you want that voice at the table so that you can actually impact the organization. And why? So yes, of course, growth is part of it. You have the desire to grow, but really what you're wanting to do is make a difference. You're wanting your work to matter. Okay, again, all of those words are not their problem. You're going to turn that into a logical, strategic approach that actually has value to them. But this is your internal motivation. So it's all well and good, but it doesn't actually matter to them. The other reason why growth is so important in terms of, your values and really understanding growth is that growth is hard. I mean, it's physically hard. When you think about a child that has growing pains, it hurts. So anytime that you're stepping outside of your comfort zone, it's really, really difficult. It's painful. It can have negative effects on our emotions. It can distract us. It can make our day-to-day job more difficult. We can open up doors to see people who don't actually care about us at our organization. Because when we start being ambitious, what we're going to find out is we're going to find out how hard that door is sealed. Like that ceiling is going to be very, very clear and very, very obvious very fast. Growth is painful. And so when we know in our head as self-motivation that we care about growth, then we can remind ourselves that this journey is challenging. And so then that way, when it is challenging, when we do have tears, when we do feel frustrated, we're not as defeated because we understand and value growth. So that helps us do hard things, essentially. And so having this, being a lifelong learner, being somebody who's motivated by growth, this is really, really important for us as leaders, as women leaders, to be able to make forward progress, to actually get what we want, everything. So I value having that in your head, in your psyche, and, tell other women about it, like join women's organizations, work with me. Let's have conversations about it on a regular basis. Read my book, buy my book for your coworkers, make everybody else ambitious. That's great. But don't rely on it as a selling point when you're talking about your promotion or advocating for you to move into a higher level position or talking to a hiring manager. So where this came up was a couple of different places, and these women were actually interviewing specifically. And so one example was this woman was trying to show to somebody, one of the hiring managers in her interview process, that she was ready to take on a role that she didn't have that subject matter expert domain knowledge in, but because she was so committed to growth and she was so ambitious that she would be quick to learn it. And so that's how she was presenting herself in this interview. And she was sort of like almost kind of like trying to convince him that her growth mattered. And she felt a little frustrated. She's like, I wanted him to see that I'm fully capable and I can learn anything. Okay, that's great. But then I want you to look at it from his perspective. He's trying to hire somebody who's already ready to go, ready to hit the ground running. And we know that because when we don't apply for jobs because they are stretch assignments, we don't apply for them because we're like, I don't know if they'll hire me. I don't know if they'll believe me when I say I can hit the ground running. So therefore, I'm not even going to go for it. Now, I want you to know that even though that's his motivation to get someone to hit the ground running and to really knock it out of the park from day one, that what you're not going to do is make your growth the selling point. So there is no world where you convince him that you're able to hit the ground running because you care about growth. I want to tell you that again. There is no universe, no world where you convince another person, especially a person who doesn't know you, that your personal growth and ambition, your ability to learn, is the reason that you're going to be able to just figure this out magically, that's outside of your domain subject matter expertise. Really think about that. And so instead, what the alternative is, and what you can start to begin to transition is first know that growth matters, your ambition matters, keep all that to yourself. Now what you're going to do is you're going to think about the qualities that he is looking for. Why is it that he doesn't think that you could automatically transition into the subject matter expertise? there are going to be certain instances, and especially depending on your level, if you're a senior manager or a director, then you are going to find yourself in a position where it is difficult to transition subject matter expertise without that industry knowledge. But at the VP level, it's your job to lead, to find people who can do it better than you. That is actually part of the job description. And you need to be able to scale and delegate and have a high level understanding of the subject matter, but you don't need to know all of the details. And as soon as you can figure out, now, how do I lead without having that domain knowledge? Now, that is your selling point. Why am I able to do this anyway? What is it that I do know about leadership, about delegation, about team management, about executive communication, about prioritization? How do I gather information that is going to allow me to transcend my subject matter expertise? Essentially, show him that you are an executive leader now. In executive leadership, you will be able to have success. Now, at the end of the day, he gets to decide, right? If he has this other person that has whatever credentials he wants and he wants them to hit the ground running, he's going to hire them. But at least you're able to, in integrity, communicate your value in a way that actually matters to that other leader. I had another person who told me that, she was talking about how her career ambitions were such that she changes jobs every couple of years. And so what she's trying to justify is her hopping around. So she would say, well, I get a little itchy after about 3 years and I switch industries, I switch careers, and that's because I'm dedicated to personal growth. And, that felt really true and good to her. But she could tell that the other person was like, okay, who cares? And I was like, yeah, that's a terrible answer, right? And I say this with love. It's like, it is a terrible answer because that other person doesn't care about your switching around. Instead, what I always do with clients is I help them understand what their multifaceted career trajectory, why it was actually on purpose. So they're identifying this on purpose as like, I get bored, I want to stretch myself, I always want to learn. And that could be the motivation behind it. But really, what we can also do is look back at that career path, put the puzzles together, and tell a better story. So you could say, well, my long-term career ambition is to become chief operating officer. And so in the meantime, I have focused on getting industry knowledge in financial sector in this, and also in specifics in operations and corporate strategy and marketing. So you can see where all of these different areas of expertise are going towards her longer-term career vision. Now, she might not be applying for a COO role. She might be applying for one of these buckets down below. But she says, hey, this was on purpose. Even if sometimes it happens technically by accident, I do believe that everything is actually on purpose. Our subconscious is driving us. And any choice that we make in our career is a choice that we're making. Even if it feels like external circumstances made it for us, we made that choice. We left that job. So again, you might have left it technically speaking because your boss was crappy or because you got laid off. But in reality, when you really kind of look at it, you can tell the same story as in, hey, I was looking for this and then I moved over here and I was able to gain that knowledge. Now I want to take on this role because I can really apply what I've learned from both of those sectors into my leadership. And so now I bring even more to the table than somebody who had that very singular direct domain knowledge. And so you're starting to show how your executive leadership skills are going to surpass somebody who is simply a subject matter expert. And that's how you begin to sell yourself in this bigger, bolder way. Otherwise, you kind of come off as justifying. And whenever we're interviewing or advocating for our promotion or trying to switch groups or whatever that might be, we're not in the role to justify. We want to show that these choices that we've made are part of our journey. And, you can be honest and you can say, hey, I didn't expect that. But in retrospect, I was able to gain this, put this together. Now I'm looking to do this. So you just have to start to tell a better story. Now, the other reason why it's really challenging, and so it's not only bad because it doesn't have value to say that you're a lifelong learner, that you're committed to growth, and that you're very ambitious, and that's why you left your last organization. I can't even say that out loud without cringing a little bit, is because of the double bind dilemma. So as women, if we are not aggressive or we don't speak up, then we're told that we need to speak up more. As women, if we are speaking up too much and we're interjecting ourselves, and let's say we are ambitious, we're told that we're too aggressive, that we're too ambitious. And that double bind dilemma exists, and really, honestly, specifically for women. And it's part of society. It's part of what happens to us. We subconsciously also feed into that a little bit. And so knowing that that exists, we don't want to leverage the thing that has the potential to put us in harm's way as being labeled as too aggressive. Oh, all she cares about is a promotion. All she cares about is a title. She just cares about growth. She doesn't actually care about the organization, which is a bunch of BS. You and I know that you work your butt off, that all you care about is the organization. And the fact that you asked for a promotion, say, does not mean that all you care about is the title. Like, that is not true in any way whatsoever. But because of gender stereotype, we get labeled as that. And so when you are advocating for your promotion, making sure that you're very clear, like, I want this title change. I want to become a COO someday. I want your job someday, whatever that might be. Like, I am ambitious, but that is only a couple of words. And then everything else out of your mouth, instead of trying to justify the ambition, which is like, I want to become vice president because I really care about growing and learning and I'm always pushing myself. That's justifying the ambition. You just say, hey, I want to become vice president someday. And then you turn it into the impact and influence that you really want to have on the organization, how you want to use your knowledge, how you want to use your expertise as a leader to do more for this organization. You see the difference in the two? One is justifying your ambition. You don't need to justify your ambition. You can be ambitious. But it's the justification of the ambition. It's the need to prove ourselves and to say, hey, I'm worth it. Can't you see, that makes the other person look at us and be like, she's too aggressive. All she cares about is the title. But instead, when we're like, I would like to be a vice president someday or today or at the next performance for you, what's it going to take to get there? I want to walk the talk. I want to talk about getting in front of the board. I want to talk about how I can take on more strategic projects. I want to talk about how I can begin to influence at a higher level, how I could share some of my ideas. I want to just share some of those ideas with my boss and actually have her listen to me. So you're actually proving and showing your value. Today's podcast episode was a public service announcement to remember that your own personal growth is something for you. It motivates you. It drives you. You should always remember it. It is a tool to keep you going, but it is not necessarily valuable to the person on the other end. Nobody cares about your personal growth. They're not going to promote you, pay you more, give you higher titles just because of your growth. But what they will do is understand your value and want it in the conversation. There's so many different ways that we can speak to and share our value. But without this knowledge that your growth doesn't matter to other people, you're going to be pushing in the wrong directions. All right, my friends, I hope this helps. I hope this sinks in. Change the way you're answering this. If you're answering this in an interview question, you can also DM me. You can work with me directly. We can figure out better answers. Read my book. It's going to share with you more and more tools that you can use to begin to advocate for yourself and stretch yourself and grow into higher level leadership positions. All right. Thank you all so much for listening. I'll see you next week. Bye. go, I have a question for you. Do you know how close you are to your next promotion? Really? Not what your boss has told you, not what you even believe to be true, but have you actually taken the time to sit down, take an assessment, review the 5 categories that it takes to get promoted into senior executive leadership positions and decided where you fall in each category and given yourself a ranking on a scale of 1 to 10 of how close you are to getting your next promotion? Have you done this? Well, now's your chance. If that feels interesting to you and you're like, hey, I want to know exactly how close I might actually be or how far away you might be and what it's going to take to get you even closer, then I invite you to take my promotability quiz. This is a quiz that I put together with practical tips that actually tell you where you're lacking and where you're winning. What are the areas that you actually need to improve and not necessarily what your boss is telling you all the time so that you can take concrete steps towards landing that next promotion and changing the face of the leadership table. Go to yourpromotabilityscore.com to take your free assessment today. Yourpromotabilityscore.com and let me know how it goes.